Dr. Gilmore, I want to, on a different topic, wanted to ask you, right now, OT&E is currently planning an F-35 versus A-10 comparison test, and I also want to thank the chairman for the work that we've done together to make sure that there's not a premature retirement of the A-10 because of its important capacity to provide close air support for our troops on the ground and the importance of that close air support. So I've been getting some mixed signals between what has been happening with the Air Force. The Air Force Secretary testified before this committee that the A-10, that in fact the F-35 won't replace the A-10. And so this comparison testing for what happens in terms of close air support is very, very important. And in fact, I want to thank the chairman as well for working, and it was an honor to work with him to make sure that there are provisions in the NDA, which we are going to consider shortly, hopefully next week, that will make sure that this comparison test is done before there is any retirement of the A-10. So I want to ask you where the comparison test process is and also how that process will be conducted in a thorough way.
I, in conjunction with the commander of the Navy's Operational Test and Evaluation Force and the commander of the Air Force Operational Test and Evaluation Center, the three of us approved a detailed plan for all of the testing in F-35 operational tests this past summer, including, in particular, a comparison test. So there's a detailed design that's on the record that the three of us have approved. Doesn't mean that my successor might not change that, but it's a good plan, and I hope that that won't occur. The test design includes comparison testing with the A-10 and the F-35 conducting close air support, combat search and rescue, and forward air controller airborne missions. It's a rigorous test, and if it's conducted, it will provide excellent information on how well the F-35 can conduct those kinds of missions in comparison with what the A-10 can do. We're also going to be doing other comparison testing, suppression of enemy air defenses with the F-16 and surface attack with the F-18. And again, the justification for all of these tests, these comparison tests, comes back to the requirements that the Air Force Chief of Staff has approved. And those include specifically, as I think I said in the last time that I appeared before the committee where I read them from the requirements document, that the A-10 is meant to take, or excuse me, the F-35 is meant to take on the role of the A-10. I mean, that's just unambiguously stated in the requirements document. I understand there's been debate and testimony that's confusing about it, but you can refer to that document and it's there in very plain English.
Well, that's excellent because we're going to find out whether that measures up.
Now, with regard to conducting that test, my projection is that the operational test for the F-35, which will include this comparison test, will not begin in all likelihood until late calendar year 2018 or early calendar year 2019, because my estimate is that mission systems testing is not going to end until July of 2018. And at that point, you could get a fleet release of the mission systems capability software together with the mission data file, which enables the aircraft to actually deal with the threat environment. And the Joint Program Office's own projections are that that mission data file won't be ready until the summer of 2018. You can't do meaningful testing until that time.
Does that mean that the F-35 is not ready to engage in combat?
Until it has a mission data file that's verified and accredited, it would not have the capability to deal with the threats that we're spending $400 billion to have it deal with. And
we're dealing with ISIS in Syria and Iraq as we speak using the A-10.
Correct. That's not why we're buying the F-35.
Is the F-35 ready to assume that role?
There are people who argue it could. I kind of wonder about that argument because right now the capability that the F-35 has is 2 air-to-air missiles and 2 bombs with limitations in close air support that actually are discussed that are significant and discussed in detail in the Air Force's own IOC readiness assessment, which states clearly that the current F-35 with the Block 3I software does not provide the close air support capability that our existing fourth-generation aircraft provide. So that's a quote from an Air Force report. I have written evaluations that are consistent with that quote. And then there are the problems with F-35 availability. The fleet-wide availability is at best 50%, sometimes bottoming out around 20 or 30%. So why it is that a commander would choose to send an aircraft that has 2 bombs, limited endurance, low availability to fight ISIS is, I think,
And the cost of
a question.
the cost of an F-35 is per copy roughly.
You know, I hesitate to give a number. It's well over the initial cost estimates. I think it's up around, it's between 80 and 100 million. It's coming down.
And the cost of an A-10?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know.
Except that
a lot less.
The A-10 has the lowest cost per flying hour.
Oh, yes.
So I don't think we're going to have the lowest cost per flying hour with the F-35.
I believe the A-10 is 15 million per
Yeah.
copy. Time is
May I follow up briefly, Chairman, on one other issue with regard to the A-10? So given the timing that we're hearing this comparison testing, one of the provisions that's also that if the NDA is passed, which we hope it is, that has been publicly released, is that the Secretary, one of the issues that I've been going back and forth with the Air Force on has been the actually removal of not ensuring that the A-10 continues to be viable. And the 2018 budget request makes sure that the Air Force cannot remove any active inventory of A-10 from flyable status due to unserviceable wings or other components. So I think this is really important given the timing that you have just talked about this comparison test and what the A-10 is doing right now against the fight against ISIS.
Yeah. So let me just be as clear as I can be about the timing. So if I'm correct, we wouldn't start training for the operational test until mid-2018, which takes about 6 months. Then the test would be conducted beginning in very late 2018 or early 2019. And by the time the test is over and the reporting is done, another year has gone by. So the report that's mandated in the bill would not be available until the end of 2019, early 2020.
Thank you.
Senator